My name is Mackenzie, and this is my YouTube channel, Autistic Musings, where we talk about all things autistic. Now, welcome if you're a new viewer and you're here for your loved one, your friend, or you're autistic yourself. And if you're a returning viewer, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. So, masking. Just a quick thing before we get started. Masking is when an autistic person suppresses their autistic traits in favor of neurotypical traits. So this means suppressing certain behaviors that are distinctly autistic, like talking about our special interests, not making eye contact, body language, stimming, suppressing all that in favor of body language and certain behaviors that neurotypicals, people that aren't autistic, display, and displaying those behaviors. That's what masking essentially is. And today I'm going to be talking about my childhood and how I consciously experienced my masking. Like, I remember deciding to mask. I just had no words for it because I had no autism diagnosis, and I didn't know what this was. I just knew that I did it, and I did it a lot looking back, and I remember the whole process for deciding to do it. So I thought I'd share it with you all. Many autistic people, though, describe this to be a subconscious thing they do. And to a certain level, after I practiced this for a while, it did become a subconscious thing. I did do it like automatically and I still do, when I meet new people and stuff. But I'm gonna go over an analogy too to explain it to all the people that are neurotypical in watching this and what masking kind of feels like, and analogies work really well for that, so. So I remember a specific incident, but I remember my thought process behind starting to mask. I remember the first few efforts, and eventually it got faster and faster and faster. And it was all about spotting patterns and how people reacted to my behavior. So I was not completely oblivious, though often people would describe me as such. I noticed that people didn't like some of the things I did. In fact, I interpreted that my lack of friends situation and the people that left the conversation so often with me, there must be a reason for this, because people don't do this to other people all the time. It seems to be specific with me, and there seem to be specific traits and moments that people got annoyed or frustrated with me or just left the conversation completely. I pinpointed those and I observed those, and I decided I was gonna go get rid of the traits. I was going to suppress the traits that people did not like. The first one that comes to mind is my famous motor mouth that goes a mile a minute and I can talk for hours, which is an interesting, some of you think this is definitely an autistic thing. I got very overwhelmed in public environments with lots of kids and everything, lots of school environments. I'd be very quiet. It looked like I was shy. When I got comfortable with you, the switch would flip and I would talk a lot of talking. I have had 3 hours of talking about a subject that I really liked, my special interest, psychology, and solid 3 hours. I didn't stop talking. This was the first trait. I remember consciously thinking, I'm gonna stop doing this because people don't like this, and they stop talking to me. And they don't seem to listen to me anymore when I'm talking because I talk too much for them. Yes, this was the first incident that I remember that I consciously told myself, I'm gonna practice being quiet for a long period of time. And when I implemented this and I practiced it and I made myself be quiet, by the way, by doing this, the thoughts in my head got a lot louder and a lot more distracting. But I did it anyway, because I noticed a reaction when I stopped talking as much. People listened to me more, like actually listened to what I said and remembered the things that I said when I talked less. And they stayed longer to talk to me, a lot longer. And this was the beginning of masking for me, of suppressing my autistic traits in favor of presenting neurotypical ones. Talking extensively about my special interests was literally caused a negative reaction in conversations. It always did when I was a kid. People would walk away, get completely frustrated with me, get annoyed. They were annoyed by me, and they stated such. So I was not misinterpreting that emotion. And it was consistent with me doing this, a distinctly autistic trait. So I very consciously stopped doing that for a very, very long time, because people didn't seem to like it, and I wanted people to like me. I wanted to belong, and I wanted people to like me, and I wanted to have friends. And I kind of missed the whole point of friendships. Most friends like you because you're a certain way, not because you do something to please them. But this was the beginning of my masking journey and the beginning of the creation of the mask of Kinsey, the neurotypical Kinsey, that is a thinly veiled lie. I say that jokingly, but yeah. Math analogy, I know you guys are so excited about this. Yeah, that was sarcasm, by the way. So in this corner, I'm gonna put math if I figure it out how to do it in editing. But imagine that people are constantly throwing formulas at you, math formulas, even the most basic ones of multiplication with like 100 and 1,000, shit like that, yeah. And you don't know what 1 represents, or 0 represents, or 3 represents, or 9 represents. You don't know what they mean in a concrete way. You don't know that 2 stands for 2 objects, or it's an abstract thing right there. But it represents something concrete in reality. So imagine that you don't understand these numbers, but people are constantly expecting you to know what they mean, and throw more complex formulas at you. And eventually you get to the point where people are doing calculus around you constantly, and these represent social situations, and you don't understand the most basic. Eventually you're going to try to cope with this, and the only way you seem to be able to keep up is by copying others, by memorizing what they're doing in a situation. Like, this person says this formula, like A plus B equals C, and their random numbers, 9 plus 4 equals 13. You're going to remember that the answer is 13. You're going to copy, you're going to paste, you're going to notice the patterns. But you'll not understand what they actually mean. You're just kind of mimicking something that you see. You have no understanding what that means whatsoever. And this kind of is what I think is a good representation, an analogy of what masking kind of feels like. You don't really know what's going on, but you're kind of pretending that you do. And you've copied other people's behaviors in the situation in order to cope with that situation, because people expect you to know what you're supposed to do and what's the socially acceptable response, which usually isn't the autistic response. It's not usually that response, which brings me to the point of I have a much better time of social situations with other autistic people because I get their reasoning behind doing things. I know what their 5 means. I know why they're doing something because it's the reasoning I'm doing things. So it's a bit easier for me to be like, oh, you're doing this because of this. I'm going to do this. And my autistic behavior doesn't bother you at all. Thank you for joining me on Autistic Musings today. And if you liked this topic and you'd like to hear more, please post in the comments section. I welcome the feedback. And if you'd like to see more of my content, please subscribe, like, and share.